So one of a question that continued to be consistent is, then how much are you talking about should be paid? So 50,000 USD is my dowry down payment that needs to pay. That's a lot of money, guys. That's a lot of money. Damaris is just worth 20 cows and 5 goats and maybe 1 bottle of honey. Dowry price does not determine the value of the bride. Can I tell you? Let me tell you, there's a sort of pride, which some people may find this funny, but there's some source of pride when your dowry is paid. Fun fact, did you know that before you get a bride from Africa, you have to pay a bride price as the bridegroom? Anyway, there's still one country that is exempted from paying, or at least they don't practice this dowry payment. And do you know what country it is? Drum rolls! Ethiopia. You got it right. Anyway, let me say first, that caught me by surprise that Ethiopians, you don't pay no dowry price. Basically, quote unquote, the bride is free. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you everything that you need to know in relation to dowry, bride price, what we call rorasho here in Kenya, what Botswana called lobula, stuff like this, like different names for what dowry basically, or is also referred to as traditional wedding. But mostly we'll be focusing on the Kenya aspect. So if you're looking for more details, how much you should pay and all that, you're in the right video. Now, my name is Queen Desta, and I'm on this series where we're talking about the wedding journey, and I'm happy to take you guys through the whole details and the whole journey. Also, the fact that I was getting married to a different culture, it was important for them to understand these details. You know how I could be living in ignorance, thinking that everyone understands things to do with, like, you have to pay dowry to marry me, or you have to, you know, like there's this requirement for you to marry me. This is not a practice, at least from where my husband comes from, America. And today we're gonna be discussing everything and how the whole procedure happened, from my experience, how much they had to pay, and everything else that happens in between. Then our next video, I will post my whole experience of how everything went down. For today, let's catch up and understand what this all is all about. So what's dowry, bride price? It is money, okay, or money, cows, valuable that you pay in exchange of a bride to your family. Well, it used to be a cultural, very traditional thing that before they never even used to like exchange. Like right now, if you want to marry, let's say from Kenya or from my tribe, you bring, this is not my story, this is what happens. I'll tell you what actually happened in my story. So you bring cows and then you get the girl. But now things have changed where you now bring the cows in form of money. So like there's the conversion rate of how much you're going to pay. And then now there's like a whole other procedure where some places they slaughter and all these things. We'll get into those details as we continue on. Now, as I was trying to see if I understand the concept of dowry fully, I did some research and I found a very interesting article here that says, in Kenya, the dowry is often the equivalent of 5 years of the groom's expectable income, usually payable in post-marital installments of livestock, bicycle cows. 5 times! Oh my goodness. Let's give an estimate that our group's expectable income in this case is how much? Let's even do like very minimal, like according to Kenyan standards. Let's not even go American standards. And say something like 10,000 USD, yeah? So that means it is expected for them to pay 5 years of that. So 50,000 USD is my dowry down payment that needs to pay. That's a lot of money, guys. That's a lot of money. But anyway, we'll get into this whole gist. But it's interesting on this whole dowry story. Anyway, I got also to research on why some people do it, and especially with the understanding of American and why they don't do the dowry. And so this is one that I found interesting. Well, first of all, the dowry system is awful. It's a bride paying money for the honor of taking your son off your hands. That's horrible. Not to mention the idea of using marriage as a financial transaction between two families is disgusting concept that has happily faded away from most Western societies. First of all, as of now, can you comment down below and let me know what are your opinions on dowry? Should women be exchanged in exchange of livestock or goods or monetary value? Let me know in the comment section down below. And then on that note, you're going to be discussing about why as Kenyans and Africans we do it. So according to what I got to understand, at least from my parents, that culture is passed on forward, yeah, and so it's based more on whatever whatever system happened for your mother to get married, then you have to do it. So whatever cow's number of whatever that was taken, that my dad gave in order to marry my mother, then my husband who wants to marry me has to do the same to his to my family, which is a tradition that I like and don't like. There's aspects of this tradition that I agree on and some tradition of it that I do not agree on. For me, the part that I do agree on is on honoring your parent. And that is also what, let's say, for the religious people, that is what the Bible asks us to do. And that is what is more respectable to do. But in the story of many Africans, this is majorly done in order to continue the practice and the cultures that we have as a people, which for that reason is a very important thing. Like, we shouldn't lose our culture in the spirit of adapting, let's say, Western cultures, but also we shouldn't stick to those cultures that don't serve us. So it also could include, like, how can this dowry payment stuff serve us? For example, some things that I'm very against is when it is about exploiting the groom in order to just pay to this family. Like, oh, it can get crazy. Why do we pay dowry?
To measure whether this person is able to take care of the daughter.
Thank you for that point, because I really appreciate that, and that is one way to know if wherever my daughter is going as a father, they are gonna be eating and drinking, you know, if they're able to give this. Thank you very much. So the interesting thing is how I find two different categories of people. Like, many Africans are very pro dowry, like, pay the dowry, yes, it is important and we really value it. And not even from a place, like, even when I was explaining to my husband on the dowry concept, it is not because that is what I am, is my value, but also it is it's just one of those things that is engraved on you, that it is good to be done, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna take you on some of the things that you should know in relation to dowry as we break down on what the dowry process looks like, and some of other things that I did not get to do, as you will see, and also some other things that maybe people should consider why they're doing them. It's a big deal to honor parents here in Africa. Well, so I keep saying this in many videos, that our parents as Africans have a say in whatever we get married to. They have voice in terms of how it is stated is a blessing or a curse. And while you go to do the dowry procedure, whether it's through appreciation, through the cows, through whatever form that you do, it is, or even introduction, it is seen like you honor the parents and you appreciate to follow the right measures, and you are grateful for how they took care of you as you're growing all, and also you honor them by now giving them whatever you're gonna give them, which is a really big deal, because we also believe in a lot of our parents have a blessing or a curse ability to our lives, and even way better if it is a blessing. And for you to get this blessing, it also entails by honoring them in this way in your preparation of getting married. Also, what other way would it be? The other option is just you and don't care to tell your parents about your marriage and introducing your other parents or family. All this, that is found to be disrespectful and just having a little degree of honor. Now, you'll find a lot of maybe people that want to get married, but they're not able to pay the dowry payment. They still have it in between, in their mind, or they still need to do it. But maybe not the right time. You know, this dowry thing goes in a very long way. In this way, if, for example, if my dad had not paid my mom's dowry, there's no way my husband would have paid my dowry. It would have meant that my dad first goes to his parents and pays the dowry before I can get married. And there's no way I'm getting married without paying the dowry or bride price, you know. So it is basically a way of honoring your parents. Number two has to be every family, every tribe, every culture, every region, and even every country, they have different ways or different requirements or different practice when it comes to bride price, and dowry. And in this case is where I would say, for example, my family, because most from what I understood about one, first of all, there's two ways. There's the traditional part and there's the cultural way. From a religious part, there are practices that you don't do. For example, you may not slaughter and the blood pouring as a form of sacrifice, as well as you might not bring like beers and alcohol to your parents just because it doesn't align to your values. But you'll find in some places they still do, despite being Christian, despite however you want to define it, which already Christianity is a whole topic that we can talk about in another video. Like we'll have that discussion sometime back, but for now, pack it. Anyway, but from my family, which is something that I'm grateful for because I didn't have to deal with this matter in terms of digging it deep. From my grandparents' side, they were so grateful to be like, you know what, there's no list of what you should bring, there's no there's basically no number of cows, no number of goats, no number of anything, just bring an appreciation that shows that you honor our family, which made our life very easy because there was then no negotiations. There was just me, okay, not even me, but like my husband evaluating himself and seeing what is comfortable. In some places, can I also tell you guys, do you know that if you're told, for example, to pay like the 50,000 USD that we were talking about earlier, you don't have to pay it like all of it. You can have like a lifetime debt, which I find that to be crazy. Like you'll be having instances that you still go back to your parents to pay the bride price. But as I've said, there's different tribes that do different things. You go to different places and you find they give you like a whole list with like, these are the number of cups that you broke. This daughter has gone to university. She did not get pregnant before marriage. She is still a virgin. All those factors continue increasing on the price to mean there's different things that determine the bride price and how the whole procedure and activity is done. A good example would be, for example, in Nigeria, I know they do their traditional wedding today and the next day they do their church wedding or the white wedding. Whereas here in Kenya, you do your traditional wedding like today and then you have to wait at least for some time to plan. You have to, actually, it's on the traditional wedding here in Kenya that you request to have the formal wedding, like the church wedding. On the traditional day, that's when you ask, can I be given permission to marry your daughter? Got it? Like, let's call it a more serious engagement, I guess, approved by the family, the society, and the community. That has to be, dowry price does not determine the value of the bride. There's no way I would give myself a quotation and be like, you know what, Damaris is just worth 20 cows and 5 goats and maybe 1 bottle of honey. You know, there's no way I can be equated to that. So even as the exchange proceeds and goes on, it doesn't mean necessarily that our voice is being taken away. And this is also something that we've all understood. I can't say all, but we're in a better place of understanding, and it's not like our voice being taken away from us in terms of like my husband being like, you know, I bought you, you know, like you cannot say this, something like this. Yeah, so it is not a buying, it is more of honor and appreciation. Fifth has to be this price tag and negotiations. So how it happens, not on my case in this scenario, but explaining on a general perspective on how bride price proceeds, there is a price tag that my family will decide. It is not necessarily a bride price. Actually, in all honesty, it's normally like a list of things that first you need to bring. There's those that you can bring in form of money, and there's those that you cannot bring in form of money. And then you can negotiate with the family to maybe minimize or reduce whatever amount of bride price that they've asked for, if it is allowed, something like this. Most of the time it's normally negotiation for a deduction because sometimes it can get outrageous. But an interesting thing that I find in this negotiation is how, for example, the groom cannot negotiate directly to the parents of the bride. Like, I don't know why this happened, but I was given an explanation on why there's always a requirement to have a representative and not your parents or your person like what to say, or like me speaking on my behalf. Or so for clarity, I mean like the parents have a representative, or it could be an uncle. Mostly it's normally uncle, aunties, best friends, stuff like this, that do the helping in the negotiation. And my explanation that I was given that did actually make sense is because we believe, I don't know if it's true, you tell me in the comment section, the parents have the power to speak words unto you. So as they are negotiating, they could say something that is not pleasing. And so to avoid that, maybe curse or whatever word, and words having power, which is true, landing on the children that are about to get married. So they find someone to speak on their behalf. So it has kind of less power, I guess, or it's not gonna be like in the future you're having disagreements with like my mother or stuff like this, with your in-laws, let's put it that way. So I thought this makes sense, and I have to say I'm happy and grateful that we didn't have to do these negotiations. Now, and to another point, when it comes to bride price, there are penalties, and these penalties can appear in different ways. For example, if you had already started living with this bride before the wedding or before you got married, there's a penalty for that. If this bride is pregnant, there's a penalty for that. If this bride has the child already, there's a penalty for that. If this child has more than one kid, there's a penalty for every other child that has come into the picture by the time you're going to negotiate for the bride price. No, by the time you're going to pay the first bride price. There's a penalty for during the occasion day. Like girls are put and covered, which is also another thing that I didn't do, that are covered, and then now you have to pick your bride. And if you pick the wrong bride, there's a penalty for that. There's a penalty for being late. There's like so many penalties can come in, which is why I come to be like, as long as you're making sure that we're improving this culture, then it's a really good practice. Also, let's say Africans love to party. Africans love to have a good time. So traditional wedding is definitely one of these days that we just meet to have a good time, to dress up, in like those traditional dresses and stuff like this. And it's despite the negotiation and the transaction business that could be going on, the having fun part is normally like a big deal about the traditional wedding. So I would just, if you're going through the process, I wish you all the best. I hope you have an easy procedure in terms of your family being kind to you and not exploit you. A main tip that I would give is, with the consideration that the reason why we are talking about the bride price is so that the bride and the bridegroom can be joined together and start a family. Therefore, the bride has a say, and has not necessarily a say, because she knows her parents, and those are the people that are raising on what they want and stuff like this. She has a place to negotiate with the parents, maybe to minimize or even to explain to the parents to have maybe less expectation, or also to explain to the parents what is the financial situation that they are in relation to how much can be acceptable or not acceptable, or can be asked, or like this is now exploitation, stuff like this. Apart from the bride price, like the price that is paid during the dowry, there's so many other practices that happen. So it's also important for the two of you, or at least the people that are involved, maybe be it the family that's coming to this family, if it's a new culture or like an interchange of culture, for them to understand what is actually going to be happening, what are some of the things they should expect or shouldn't expect, and so that they are not caught by surprise. For example, one example is if they get late, that there will be a penalty, or if they don't sing with a lot of psych and vim, there could be asked for more money, like preparations of such kind. And another thing in relation to dowry payment that I've actually seen and experiences from other people, be open-minded and ready for things that are unexpected, like something that you could have planned everything, but there's like this one scenario of something or someone that could say anything or something that you had not foreseen. Of course, you cannot fail to talk about expenses that come with hosting a whole traditional wedding, which that now will depend on how your family is. Some families demand that the occasion is funded by the girl's side, the bride's side. Some families still demand that despite you coming to pay the bride price, you also fund the event and everything that's going to go on. Well, there's a perspective that is said that I found very interesting, is the father of this house of the daughter was just chilling. He was just living his life. So you are the one, the groom, coming to disturb him. So you have to make him comfortable. That makes sense. So I find it interesting. Anyway, I can't wait for you guys to watch my traditional wedding and how it went, and also the fact that, and also for you to see how different it can be. I really have to say, like, it was different in terms of number of people, in terms of activities that we did. For example, we didn't slaughter nothing, we didn't have no list, we didn't have, it was basically more of an appreciation. And even my parents continued to clear it out that it was an appreciation more than it is dowry price, and even better because we don't have a list. So also, if you believe in the dowry price situation or you don't, it is very important to honor your parents, and you honor your parents with things. So don't just go standing. Make sense? Yes. So one of a question that continued to be consistent is, then how much are you talking about should be paid? From this article that we've seen, 50,000 USD. There's very little chances that 50,000 USD, he's normally just chilling, waiting for someone to get married. So, of course, that was just the internet. And I also don't want you to go rob my parents thinking they have 50,000 USD. They do not. I promise they do not. But the thing is, I cannot tell you how much you can pay for dowry. And also, it is almost not acceptable for even me to know how much dowry was paid in the long run. Because sometimes even when they do the negotiations, they're out, you know. So that's why it continues to stay as a misery. And also, as if you're doing your dowry as we did it in my family, my dad would still be happy even if I gave $10, $20. Like money that is, yes, they did it. Like he can see, yes, they did it. He was really happy even before he knew how much money has been given, and I can't wait for you guys to see that. And this is only to say, so before you tell me I did not tell you how much you pay for dowry, this is the explanation. Like, it almost is not right to say how much dowry was paid in the long run. In Africa, we have this continuous joke of, after dowry price has been paid, then you are like, I have already been bought. Let me tell you, there's some degree of honesty in that. After the dowry price happened, or after the dowry was concluded, you sure feel like that was your wedding day. Like that kind of, quote unquote, we are out of the engagement period. Now we are into married people. They say in some places the dowry or traditional marriage is recognized. Here in Kenya, it is not governmentally recognized. Like, you won't have a marriage certificate, so then it's important for you to do something else so you can have a marriage certificate. Of course, we have to also talk about, you need to understand what is the culture or what the family of whoever you're getting married to do. For example, I keep joking about this. What happens when a Kenyan girl is getting married to an Indian guy? Like, who pays the dowry, or who does not pay the dowry in that case? Or do they both pay the dowry? Anyway, dowry payment, let me know your opinion in the comment section down below. Can I tell you? Let me tell you, there's a sort of pride, which some people may find this funny, but there's some source of pride when your dowry is paid. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is my story. Always remember to create time for that which ignites your soul. Until next time, bye for now.